don't know about you, but during the winter when I watch the weather and you see these jet streams coming from Canada, you know it's going to be frigid after that. And so I don't like seeing those. When I was teaching in California, I taught for a couple of years in Stockton, the Central Valley, right in the middle. Those of you who are old enough remember the show The Big Valley. That's where it was, right in Stockton. Remember, they always went there. And our principal, Sister Manis, would warn us, there's going to be a full moon tomorrow. Make sure you have good lesson plans, because you know how the students get. When there was a Thule fog was a horrendous fog. It would come in and it was ground layer. And often it would create black ice, and it was dangerous. But the problem with Thule fog was that you couldn't see a foot in front of you sometimes. So when the children went out for recess, it's like they disappeared. Of course, they always reappeared back in classroom, sometimes unfortunately. But the Thule fog would affect their behavior. And then there were the winds that just whipped across the valley. And certainly you're familiar with hearing on the news recently of the fires in California, especially in the Napa-Sonoma counties, all those counties north of San Francisco, and how the winds just whipped through and devastated so many homes. Well, the winds had an effect on many things, certainly on homes and businesses, but it also had an effect on the children. Because when they come into school first thing in the morning, it was like the wind had whipped them around and they would like be bouncing off the walls. And so how do you contain them? By knowing the signs of the times that we're familiar with, we can plan, as our principal reminded us. Be prepared. Be prepared so that you can handle the children and still teach them something, because that was why they were there. Jesus is telling us that if we know how to interpret the present times, although global warming, if you believe in that, which I happen to, global warming can throw things into a tizzy, as it is doing in so many parts of the world, causing devastation. But we know, certainly, by some weather patterns and other things, what is going to happen. And St. Paul reminds us that if we pay attention to our bodies, we know when temptation is going to come in. And St. Paul is such a realist. He calls himself miserable. We need to get more people to do that, to call themselves miserable and to see themselves as miserable so that they know that they need to improve the way they are, the way they act, the way they behave with their brothers and sisters. Jesus tells us that in the gospel. If you know how to read the signs, why can't you judge for yourselves what you need to change? What is it about you that you need to change? I know that I need to become more patient, but that's been since I was a teenager. It's a long process. My mother prayed for me every day, and she, now I know, asked all kinds of other people to pray for me to be patient because they tell me. And now I know that she is in heaven praying for me to be patient still. It's working, but it's a very slow process. Now when I'm driving and I criticize someone else, I always look in the mirror and say, Walter, you're an idiot because you would have done the same thing. And so it takes me back. It takes me back to realize that I'm just as miserable as the person I just criticized. And so why do I criticize? Why do I lose my patience? I think it's human nature to lose patience. I don't know. I know that many people around me happen to lose theirs too, so I'm not alone. At any rate, St. Paul reminds us that there is only one person that can help us in reading ourselves. There is only one person who has taught us how we are to live with ourselves, with one another. And that person is Jesus Christ. God himself is the one who gives us what we need to live our lives in peace and in unity with our brothers and sisters. We look at the world and the message falls on deaf ears. Even St. Paul admitted that it was difficult for him because the temptation that arose in his body and his life overwhelmed the knowledge that he had of God, who is our salvation, God, who is our brother, in Jesus Christ, God who is our Father, who loves us, and who cares so much for us that he desires only the best. And the statutes that he gives us, which we hear about in the psalm today, those statutes, those commandments, are given out of love. And if we live the commandments in love, then we can live as St. Augustine teaches us. Love God and do whatever you will. It's not permission to do whatever you want, to enter into temptation. But if you love God and follow his commandments, then you will only desire to do what is right, what is good, and what is just. And so this winter, as you're watching the weather and you see those jet streams come from California, be patient. If you can't shovel snow, don't shovel the snow. By all means, stay inside and pray, asking the Lord for yourself, asking the Lord for one another, for your brothers and sisters, to help us resist the temptation, to help us resist the times when we are tempted to change, to look only at Christ, Jesus who is our salvation, to depend only on God who gives us out of love what we need to live each and every day in his peace, in his unity, in his love eternal.